Hello, everyone. We just wait for a few minutes more to all other attendees join us. Hopefully you can hear me and see the screen I'm currently sharing. Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, good evening. Thank you again for joining us. Welcome to our third session of BEXEL Manager Online Education. Mileta Pejovic is speaking. I'm BEXEL Manager and B Manager at BEXEL Consulting and teaching you BEXEL Manager platform and workflows using BEXEL Manager. If you have any questions, use Q&A as the previous sessions. And at the end, I'll try to respond to your questions. If you're here with us for the first time, this is another online session introducing you BEXEL Manager. And every Tuesday and Wednesday at the same time, I'll demonstrate you BIM workflows using our platform in live demo mode. Another info for everyone is that all sessions will be recorded and sent as the previous ones. And of course, all you attendees can submit requests for free trials during this period of education, and you're gonna get your free trial license for the period of education. Last week, we talked about some basic options, user interface, opening the projects, exploring main projects, and working with the Building Explorer and custom breakdown systems. And we also covered some options for data management and attributes and properties, and their import and export using the export and import features, and as well as exporting the IFC files, which can be encased with added properties. Today's topic is creating selection sets or grouping B-model elements and creating simple scenes and animations. So before we continue with today's topic, let me just answer some questions that we got previous weeks regarding working with let's say infrastructure projects or with a project with different elements which are exported as separate layers from the authoring tool. So in this case, we got a question regarding how does IFC elements which are created in some authoring tools and exported as infrastructure projects are segregated in the BEXEL Manager, whether it's according to the buildings or some other segregation method. Well, actually, according to the IFC standards, we still, or actually IFC standards for infrastructure projects are not developed or finished completely yet. So it's still in a process of development. And according to the current standards, BEXEL Manager segregates the buildings according to the sites, buildings, and B-model elements. And what is new and what is really, really important, and what I explained previously, is that BEXEL Manager allows you to additionally and manually rearrange assignment of your B model elements to any kind of segregation you like. So in this case, we have a infrastructure project or tunnel project, which is actually segregated or created by tunnel. And it can be really easily done by just changing the spatial structure and renaming it uh, according to your needs or according to the client's requirements. Also, I got some questions how we and do we have some tools for sectioning B model and 3D sectional plane sectioning and something like that. Yes, we do have it, of course, but these are all some basic tools and some basic features that are mainly covered in our YouTube tutorials and in our manual. I'm currently going to explain you some, let's say, more advanced workflows and features which are not fully covered in the published educational materials yet. So of course, if you want to use sectioning, you can use that, enabling sectioning and choosing whether you want to use the planes or the box, so you can easily change and explore your B model that way. So it's not a problem. We also have some other infrastructure project which is developed by our partners and our users from Obermeyer. And this is a project developed by their authoring tool, ProV. And I'm going to show you how easily you can segregate this kind of infrastructure project, which contains different types of infrastructure elements, such as railways, roads, and also some bridge elements, and of course, site. It's quite easily to segregate and organize your B model elements according to different types of these different infrastructure elements. So we do have different segregation according to that. We have a bridge, and it's quite easily done using the edit spatial structure. And every time when you update the project, it can be updated as well. We have a railway, and we have a roads, and of course existing site. So you can do it according to your wishes, basically. For the creating of this infrastructure, as I've said, they used their own authoring tool called ProV. And also, I'm going to answer to last question from the last session is how we can work with a B model elements which are in our Turing tool, let's say some kind of compound elements such as compound walls, floors, ceilings. And as BEXEL managers recognize these layers from these compound elements, well, it depends how you export B model elements into IFC or into BX3. So if you're working with a Revit and you want to use all the layers, then you have to know that all these layers to be recognized in any other authoring tool, in any other BIM management tool, not just the BEXEL manager. You have to create the parts or segregate your BIM model elements into layers. Or if you're using some other authoring tool such as ArchiCAD, Tekla, or anything similar, then when you export these elements into IFC, you can export all these layers separately into different IFC types. And if you do that, all these layers are going to be segregated and recognized in the BEXEL manager as separate parts. And I have some already created scenes, which we're going to explain later on today. So I'm going to show you some parts from this building. We have two towers. And in this one, in this right tower, we have all these compound elements, or in this case, compound walls, segregated into layers. And in this other building, left tower, we have all these similar or the same walls, which are not segregated into parts. So in this case, where the elements are not segregated, we have the element types, and that's it. And you have all the properties, all the information or the attributes regarding to that specific wall. Or it works the same way if we're talking about the floors and the ceilings. So if you don't create separate parts, or if you not export these as separate layers using IFC exporter, you won't be able to use layers. But if you created parts, or if you exported it into separate layers, then for each of these walls, I can select each layer. So this is specific wall. You see it's a family part, which is subtype of our wall. And if I change this selection info in a different segregation method, for example, into materials, then all these parts are segregated by specific material, and then according to the wall which is used, or which is, let's say, parent wall, from which we extracted their sublayers. So if I select multiple layers from the same wall, you see we have a different materials, all from the same wall. So you see that is the same wall, same parent wall, but we have a separate layers, and you can check the properties for each of these parts or each of these layers and calculate the quantities or do whatever you like. And of course, you can do this segregation similarly as we did the previous time using custom breakdowns. You can segregate all these elements according to any property or according to the materials, for example. So that's the way how you can handle different layers coming from the compound walls or compound elements. And now let's go back to the today's topic, which are grouping and creating basic scenes and animations. So why grouping is important? The groups can be used for linking B-model elements with building zones, or creating schedule tasks from them, or for creating different kinds of clash detection jobs, or any kind of additional model segregation, which have to be used in multiple purposes. And importance of that, of creating selection set, is that if you use creating smart selection sets, or something that I'm going to explain later on, is that all these created groups of elements are going to be automatically updated when you update your B model. So there's a lot of different aspects and benefits of using selection sets and grouping B model elements for, let's say, next and the future purposes of use of your BIM model and use your BIM project in the BEXEL manager. And it's really, really important to organize your BIM model elements in some way, not just using custom breakdowns and this system-based segregation, which you always and automatically gonna get, but organizing your BIM model elements in some other ways, specifically for each project. So if this is clear, now I'm gonna explain how you can create different kinds of selection sets and how you can access and edit all these. So again, we're gonna work with a demo model, and this is the same demo model which I explained in the previous sessions. So we created this one from 3 different sources, which are architectural, structural, and MEP BIM model. Also, we had some questions about how we can colorize these elements, and does all these colors coming from the authoring tool automatically? Yes, of course, if you created materials in your authoring tool and export BX3 or IFC files, according to the material settings, you're gonna get the colors, but also you have the options to additionally change the colors in the BEXEL Manager, which I explained previously. Also, we had a different additional options for, let's say, um, some more advanced changing visual aspects of your BIM project using textures, for example. And also this is covered in our already published tutorials on YouTube and also in our manual. So I'm not gonna explain it in depth. I'm just gonna show you that you can use the texture editor manually, adding different textures or using the option for predefined texture mapping. And if you do that, then the system will ask to fulfill some kind of queries or the rules how you can automatically tell the system which elements to, let's say, texture in which way using specific images. And if you do that using some kind of Excel spreadsheets or creating the same, you can just use the apply all, and the system will automatically texturize all the project, entire project, as you may note right here. And also all these elements in the BIM model are also texturized according to specific rules. So you see that the beams have specific texture, also slabs and so on. And this is all covered in our online tutorial. So you can go there and check it. I just have to mention it because a lot of you asked for coloring and texturing BIM models. So if this is clear, I'm gonna go to selection sets, which is the main topic for today. And this is the place where you can organize and create your selection sets. In a previous tutorials, I've explained how when you update your BIM model, sometimes of automatically generated selection sets are created. And yes, of course, it's gonna be automatically created every time when you update your BIM project. The selection sets, which shows you changed and updated BIM model elements, which are automatically created, will be updated every time when you update the project. And this is something that the system does automatically. But any kind of additional BIM model grouping, you have to do manually or let's say semi-automatically. And this is something that I'm going to explain today. So this is the place where you explore and create your selection sets. And now for this sample model, I'm gonna create some, let's say, grouping of the B model elements in a different phases or let's say zones of the building, which later on can be used for creating schedule. So we're gonna use already created properties to organize and group specific B-model elements. But before that, let me just explain how you can manually also create some kind of groups, but there's a lot of flaws why you should not do that manually, because every time when you update a B model, then you have to repeat the same process, manually selecting specific B model elements and adding them or removing it from specific groups. So let me just show you how this works. I'm gonna select specific B model elements, let's say manually from the building. So these are some facade walls. Let's say this is it. I decided to group these specific selected elements, and every time when I open my project, I always gonna get to the access to these B model elements. So if you're satisfied with the selection, you can create new selection sets using the option new selection set from this window for selection sets, or right clicking here in this empty area and using the option new selection set, in this case from selection. So there's a two ways how you can do this. And it's the same, practically the same thing. And now I'm gonna provide a name for this kind of selection set. It's manually selected elements. And we can create some kind of description if it's needed, and that's it. So if I hit OK, you see that we have new created selection sets, and we can automatically, by selecting this, can select all these elements which are included in it, or we can easily use the same circle for visibility indicator actually to hide or unhide these elements from the current 3D view. And also we can use all these created selection sets for additional BIM model analysis, which will be explained in a further sessions for quantity takeoffs, for clash detections, for scheduling, and so on. So this is quite simple and time-consuming way how you can do it manually. But what is more important is that you can use, as I've previously tried to explain, you can use any of the available properties of your B-model elements and automatically group your B-model elements according to any provided property or any provided attribute information from it. So in this case, as I've said, I'm going to use construction sequence property to automatically group my B-model elements by that and tell the system to group all the elements which are assigned to phase 1, 2, and 3 to different groups. So how we can do it? Well, the easiest way is to create new selection set, but instead of using already selected elements, we're gonna provide a name for this one, let's say phase 1. So this is a selection set with a name phase 1 because we're gonna group all the elements containing phase 1 value of the property. And we're gonna use the option for grouping these elements using the option rules, which means to link B-model elements and create the groups according to specific rules or according to specific properties. So in this case, because I know that I'm gonna include the elements containing property construction phase, which is phase 1, I'm gonna use the option inclusive, and then we can use different types of options for selecting or grouping the model elements. One way is to group entire building, which in this case we want to use. Other way is to, let's say, if you want to group all your building elements based on different stories, you can do that, even if you have already automatically segregated Building Explorer by the stories or the levels. You can do that here as well. You can use the categories and create the groups of the categories automatically, or according to the families or the types of specific B-model elements. But in this case, I'm going to use the element query, which means that we're going to use properties or the attributes to group elements automatically. So I'm going to use element query, and I'm going to select which query or which property we want to use. So we can additionally use categories, families, or whatever we like, or in this case, I'm going to use property value. So by using this, we can select from the drop-down list which property we want to use. So I know that I'm going to use construction phase or construction sequence. Construction sequence is the accurate name of my property. And I know that this property is actually textual. And we want to use the equal value. So in this case, I'm gonna put the value of this property, which will be used for grouping elements, and that's gonna be phase one. And when I hit OK, you see now that the system automatically recognized 4,716 elements, which are passing all these rules. So all these elements have the property which is called construction sequence and having value phase one for that property. And if I hit OK, now we created selection set, or we created group of the elements, and all these elements have the same property for construction sequence, which is phase one. And this is the way how you can create smart selection sets. So these are actually smart selection sets because they're using specific rules to automatically group the elements according to that rule. And in this case, it was really, really simple and um, elementary rule, which says, okay, group the elements which have value for specific property exactly that phase one or whatever property we decided. If we want to use the same rule and create additional selection sets for, let's say, phase 2 and 3, we can do in this case, and this is, let's say, some workaround, but it's going to be significantly improved in the future. So we'll be able to use some kind of custom breakdowns system to create automatically selection sets using similar rules that we used for creating custom breakdowns. In this case, if we want to use the same rule to create additional selection sets, I would do this. I would go to the manage selection set, which is additional window for managing selection sets that we created. We can create subfolders for each of these and regroup and organize created selection sets. So I'm going to create new selection set folder and call it, for example, construction phases. And I'm gonna put phase one selection set into this folder using allow moving selection sets using drag and drop. So I did this, and now I'm gonna copy this already created selection set for let's say 2 more times. So I'm gonna paste it 2 times, and then for each of these selection sets, I can double click on it or use the option edit. Of course, you can delete, copy and paste multiple times any of these selection sets that you automatically created. And then I'm gonna edit this one just using this option or the value for the phase of construction sequence and change it to the phase 2. Hit OK. And then I'm gonna change this selection set into name phase 2. And that's it. Now you see 3,366 elements included in this group. And of course, I can repeat that for phase 3. And it's quite simple. But as I've said, we're gonna include a lot of improvements in the future releases, which are gonna make this even easier. And that's it. Now I've created 3 different selection sets or the groups, and each group only contains or only captures the elements with that specific property. You may see that right here. All these properties are the same. And of course, there's a lot of different rules. So I'm going to explain you just for a few more rules and different queries how you can group your elements. Now I'm going to create, let's say, additional group of the elements using um, different rules for, let's say, structural elements. So in this case, we can use the option to include the elements which are coming only from the source of the structural elements. So in this case, I'm going to use, let's say, the property value, which is called, I think, document name or something like that, which says us that document title, which is actually the document or the source name. And I'm going to use the option not equal, but begins with st, which means that the first rule will be including all the elements which are starting from the or coming from the source which has the name st in its name. And this can be really useful if you're using specific requirements for the project or using specific standards or BIM execution plan. And if in these documents you have specifically stated that your model's gonna use specific naming conventions or the coding system, or how you're going to specifically organize your B model elements according to specific names and codes, then all these rules can be used for creating selection sets. So if you're following your requirements for each specific project, then you can recreate the same rules given in these documents and create your specific selection sets to automatically group your B model elements according to that. So that's it. And also, if we want to, for example, just use structural elements for, let's say, substructure works or something like that, then I can use the option. This is going to be structural elements for substructure. So in this case, I can use another rule, which will be intersect rule. And then I'm going to use the query, in this case, uniformat code, which starts with a number or which starts with the A. So I'm going to use the property value again, and I'm going to use the property uniformat. So we're going to change it to start with or begins with. Also, you have the regex expressions, which you can use to create advanced selection sets and rules for your B model elements. And this is something that is new feature, and this is really convenient for different types of the properties and different types of the values where you, for example, want to use just the let's say middle name or some specific let's say number within the value of that code. So you can use the regex. In this case, I'm going to use begins with and say A. So now you see only 315 elements which following these two rules, that all these elements have the uniformat starting with A, and all these elements are included in the document or the source, which starts with an ST. So if I hit OK, we created selection set, which is called structural elements for the substructure, and we can see these elements. So that's it. I created it in just a few clicks. And this is something that you can use to organize and group your B model elements according to your requirements. And also something that we're gonna share with you, I think, quite soon in our user area. And I also have to mention that again. So all of you which are using BEXEL Manager, whether it's a full version or the trial version, can use the BEXEL user area to log in and access to additional materials which we're gonna publish and share with you. So if you go to your account, in this case I've already logged in, you can go to the materials, and this is the place where we're gonna put all these additional data and the materials which you can download and use in your project. So you see already shared IFC model checker and NutSpec BIM checker. These are add-ins for the BIM model checks and manuals and tutorials. And we're gonna share much more um, materials very soon. But now I'm gonna just give you a brief hint. We can also use add-in, which is created using our open API, and we can load multiple selection sets automatically if we created rules in an Excel spreadsheet. And now I'm gonna show you how this Excel spreadsheet is gonna look like. So we can open different Excel spreadsheets and use specific rules and the queries using expressions, and then we can load automatically all these selection sets. So this is one example. So the first column is for the folder. So right here, you're specifying the folder which will be used to organize your selection sets. So in this case, we're gonna create new folder called Clash. And then in that folder, we're gonna create new subfolder with the name ST. These are for the structural elements. And then within the next, or within the same folder called Clash, we're gonna create new MEP folder. And of course, we're gonna create new AR or architectural folder for the architectural groups of the elements. And this is the name of selection set. So we're gonna create structural columns, structural walls, slabs, and so on. And these are the rules or the queries. So what this means? Well, actually, this is a brief explanation. So if you want to use the option or the statement equal, then you have to create or name your property which you want to use within this rectangular brackets. And of course, using the apostrophes for each the property. And then if you want to make the rule that properties has to be equal, then you're gonna use that property or the value for the property. If you want to say the system to use specific property, but only with a value which is contained within the property, then you can use these, let's say, also apostrophes, but used the symbol for percentages at the beginning and at the end of your value of the property. So it means that this value is going to be included or containing that value. If you want to start with specific value, then you're going to use this expression, or if you want to end your expression with specific value of the property, then you're going to put these percentages symbol at the beginning. Also, if you want to use different kinds of combination of these properties or the rules, if you want to use inclusive, then you're going to use or within these two expressions. If you want to use intersect, then you're going to use and if you want to negate specific rule, then you're going to use and not. So this is how it looks like in the real example. So if we want to use the property or the category name, which is structural column, coming from the structural B model source, then we're going to use this kind of expression using value of the property document title starts with an ST and the category columns have to be fulfilled, and then only these elements will be included. And this can be used for all these different types of groups. So in this case, if we want to use security devices category to be automatically grouped in the selection sets of security devices, then we can use security devices category, which is coming from the source or B model, which name starts with an MA. The same things goes with the architectural elements. If we want to automatically group all the doors, then automatically we say the system to organize the doors which are coming from the source, which have the name starting with an AR. Additionally, if we want to use, for example, uniformat codes, for example, so let me just show you that as well, or any other property exact value, then this is how the Excel is gonna look like. So this is the folder which will be automatically created. This is the name of selection set. And this is quite simple rule, which says if element have uniformat code with the exact value like this, then the elements will be automatically grouped. And if we have this kind of Excel spreadsheets, we can use this add-in and automatically create multiple selection sets. So in this case, I'm going to use selection set for grouping the elements for, let's say, future selection sets analysis or future clash detection analysis. And that's it. We automatically created folder which has the name clash, as I've previously explained. So we have the folder with the name clash, and then within that folder, we're gonna get 3 new folders, ST, MEP, and AR. You may see that. And within each of these folders, we have multiple selection sets automatically created. And we can use that. You see automatically all the ceilings are grouped. All the doors, floors, structural beams, and so on. Of course, we can use new import and organize all the elements according to, let's say, uniformat code. So the system automatically creates folder uniformat, and then we have all the elements automatically grouped by specific uniformat code. And if you want to check how it works, what is the exact rule, then we can just right click on it, edit, and then use the rule. And of course, you can change it, you can edit these rules, you can rename selection sets and reorganize them according to your needs. Of course, you can delete any of these selection sets if you think that you don't want to use it. So I can select multiple selection sets and just click the delete option or right click on it and use the option delete. And then I'm just deleting selection sets. All the elements are still existing in my B model. So all these elements are still existing. This is just a way how we can group these elements and how we can use these groups for additional jobs and additional BIM analysis. I think this is really clear and simple. So now I'm going to explain you how you can create simple scenes and animations for your projects and how you can export these animations into videos and use that kind of materials for promotion and coordinate with your participants on the project. So if you want to use scenes and create specific images of your B model, then you have to use module for the scenes and animation, which is positioned in the lower part of the screen. Right here, it's scenes and animations. And right here, because it's a new project, you see there's no added or created scene or any animation. So if you want to create new scene or animation, we can position the camera wherever we want, and just right-clicking here in this empty space, we can create new animation, view, or the scene. So if we're creating scene, it means that the system will show us this window where we're providing the scene name, and this is a scene 1. We can, for each scene or a view, we can provide additional description, but this is really important to understand. If you're creating the scenes, then the system will automatically remember the position of your camera, which is a viewpoint, automatically will be remembering the visibility, or all the elements which are currently visible in the screen will be always available and present when you double click on that scene. Also, the colors and the render type will be saved. And this is the main difference between scene and the view. So if we save this scene, you see that all these elements are actually still visible. We have our scene. This is a brief view or review how this scene looks like. So if I just hide everything in my B model, and I can also hide entire B model, all the elements, with double clicking on this scene, everything will be restored in our current 3D view in the same way as it's saved, or as the same way as it's presented right here. So double clicking here, we see that the scene is automatically restored. But if we create the new view, which is a difference between scene and view, it means that only camera position will be saved. And this is the main difference between scene and the view. So if I hide all these elements and just, let's say, show our architectural, or let's say just structural elements, and save the view, not the scene. And now I'm gonna save view. View 1, you see that by default, only viewpoint is checked. And the system only remembers the camera position. So let me show you the difference. If I hide everything again and try to go to the view, double click on the view, the camera only gonna move to that place, but all the elements will remain hidden, as you may see. But if I double click on my scene, all these elements will be visible again. And that's the main difference between scenes and the views. And if this is clear, and now, of course, all these scenes and views are saved with your project. And every time when someone else opens the project, they're gonna be able to access all these scenes and the views, and can also access them just by double clicking on it. And this is another way how you can organize specific B-model elements into different scenes and the views. And also all these scenes and the views can be shared with the participants on the project using the option export, or sorry, the option exchange, and using the option export from the BEXEL to the another BEXEL project. And right here we can save scenes or animations or all other aspects of the BIM model which we, or the BIM project that we created using the BEXEL Manager. And this is something that I'm gonna cover later on when I explain, when we, let's say, populate our BIM project a little bit more with all these other stuff, how we can share these information between different participants or between different projects. So everything is saved and can be reused. and shared, of course, with other participants. So if this is clear about the scenes and the views, of course, from all these scenes or the views, you can create your images, and this is something that is covered already in our online tutorial, so you can share the images with your participants on the project. So this is the automatically created image, of course, but we can also create the animations, and this can be done quite simple. So if you want to create the animations, then the option is create, or right click right here in this empty space, or using the option new and create animation. So I'm going to create new animation. And right here, we can specify duration of our animation and the frame rate. In this case, I'm going to leave it as default, so our animation will last for 20 seconds. And because our frame rate is 30 frames per second, it means that we're going to have a 600 frames at total. So if we hit OK and just click on this new animation, you see the new view or new options are presented in this window. We see the time frame, which shows us all the frames, all 600 frames. And now, quite simple, we can create animation using the current 3D view and moving the camera around the building and changing the visibility of these elements. So if we want to start animation at this point, right-clicking on empty space and create new keyframe. And then we can provide the keyframe name for each frame. Also, you can edit created keyframes, change the focal length and all other additional options which are available. But in this case, I'm going to use it by default. So this is the first place of the camera. This is the beginning of the animation. And then let's say at the half of our animation, it's around 300 frame. We want to move the camera right here. And then I want to change the visibility of the elements to see only, let's say, structural elements and create new keyframe. So it's the same as we creating different scenes, which will be used to, let's say, create unique animation using these different scenes in a different timeline. So this is a second position of the camera and the visibility settings. And of course, for the end of animation, I want to, let's say, hide everything except my MEP elements. And also we can change the color of these elements. So they're gonna be presented in this way, and also we can change the visibility option or the render type. And everything will be saved. So if I hit to create new keyframe, we created 3 different positions of the camera, 3 different scenes, and the system will create the animation from it. So if I satisfy with this kind of animation, I can go back and try to play this animation. And the system in real time shows you how the animation is going to look like. And it depends on the hardware of your computer, how this is going to be fluent. But when you export this as a video, the video will be fluent as any normal video. So the system automatically interpolates these 3 scenes and create the animation from it. And of course, if you want to check where is the camera path or how the camera is actually moving from the first position until the last one, we can choose the option show camera path, and then you can see how the camera is actually moving from the starting position until the last position, and this is the way or the pathway of the camera. And of course, if you're not satisfied with this kind of animation, we can choose or change the camera position, move it a little bit like this, right click on this last scene, and then use the option update camera position or camera position and render state, which means that everything will be updated, not just the camera position, but also the visibility of the elements. So now if I play my animation, it's gonna be a little bit different. So you see now how the last scene is shifted a little bit and updated according to the updated information. And of course, we can export this as an animation using the export button. And any animation that you're creating using BEXEL Manager can be exported into a set of images or as a standalone video. So if you choose video, then you have to choose any codec available in your computer. In this case, I have already installed codec with the settings which I set up for my video. And then using the option export, we can export entire video, or we can choose which frames we want to export. So you can use this to additionally filter which part of your video you want to export, entire video or just a part of the video. In this case, I'm going to export entire video to present you the result. So this is the new animation video, save it. And also, depending on the performances of your computer, duration of the export can change, but for quite simple and short animation, it's not a big deal. It's just let's say half of a minute or something like that for the export. In the meanwhile, I'm gonna try to check off some of your questions because we are almost coming to the end of today's session. So I have a question about the properties. I cannot transfer all the properties into favorites. I'm not really sure what's the issue, but any property that you have can be transferred into the favorites. If you have some issues, then maybe the best way is to, let's say, send us some screenshots, or if it's available, to send us your project and explain the issue itself. So when the project is completed, when the export is completed, we're gonna get the window with the, let's say, information. It's on my second screen. That's it. And now I'm gonna present you how the exported video looks like. So this is the exported video. I'm not sure how it's gonna looks like in a real time. Maybe it's gonna be some stuttering, but it's really fluent in my screen. So this is the exported video. And that's it. And it's really, really simple, and you can do it in a few minutes. And also sometimes our users ask, can we just create the orbit or just rotate the camera around the building and create that kind of camera movement? Yes, of course, if you want to do that, something like that, create new animation. Let's call it orbit. And then using the option create orbit, right click on this empty space, we can create the orbit. And for the starting point, we can create new camera position like this, and then create orbit. The system asks how many times you want to rotate around the building. One time is enough. And how many keyframes for this one orbit. Let's make it or leave it as default. And if you want to match the first and the last frame, so you can create some kind of repeating animation effect, you can check last frame matches the first and hit it OK. And we can also use the option center the camera around visible elements, which slightly shift the camera and position it to use the center of the visible elements in the screen. So the system automatically creates the animation, and this is how the animation looks like. And then you can export this as a video. And also you can additionally change it. For example, first few, let's say, first few frames, we want to see entire building, and then next, let's say 8 keyframes, we want to hide everything except, let's say, structural elements. Then I'm just going to change the visibility and edit these selected frames using the option change element render state using or actually using update selected elements. So in this case, I'm going to use structural element render state, and then I'm going to use the option to update selected elements, and also I'm going to hide MEP and architectural as well. And now the animation is going to look like this. So let me just go at the start, show everything at the beginning, and then all the elements will be start to disappear at specific time frame, as you may see right now. And then they're gonna bring back again at the keyframe 9. So these are, let's say, tips for creating the animation using different options. And of course, this is something that I wanted to show and share with all of you is when we save this project, which have already created animations and selection sets that we created and updated with the new parts of the project or with the new sources, everything will be automatically updated. And this is the great importance, and this is the main benefits of creating selection sets. So I'm going to close this project and use option to update it. So this was the online education project version 1, and we're gonna update it with additional source of, let's say, structural elements. So I'm gonna use structural part of the structural BIM model, and this is how the completed or updated project will gonna look like. So the system asks us if we want to match the source. No, this is the new source for the structural part of the building, and this is a new building. We're gonna call it building 2. And hit OK. In the meantime, I'm gonna try to respond to another question. Is there any chance to create custom rules, not as selection sets, from scratch? Like some rules in Solibri, such as fire code related rules, means of egress, such as if you think about checking or code checkings, I mean, you can do that using the already available custom breakdowns, using the already available add-ins for checking the IFC elements, and grouping the elements according to specific value. And this is the way how the BEXEL manager can create that. Does BEXEL also create automatic construction schedule animation? Yes, and that's a topic for the next week, I think, or maybe you already have the agenda for that. I'm gonna bring it back again. So this is the agenda for that. So the scheduling is for the 29th and the 5th of May. 29th of April and the 5th of May. We're going to explain that in depth. Is rendering as an AV possible as an export as MP4? Currently, I think it depends on the codec that you have installed. And currently, I think it's limited to AVI. Can I import my own uniformat list into BEXEL Manager? I'm not sure what kind of list you have in mind, but yes, you can import your classification. And this is something that I'm going to explain when I talk about the cost classifications. And also if you have your B-model elements with added properties regarding your own uniformat or any other classification, of course, all these properties will be visible. But this, let me just briefly explain the benefits of selection sets. We added a new building, but all these selection sets are automatically updated. So we have architectural elements the same, but the structural elements for other building is automatically updated. The beams, the columns, foundations, because all these elements are automatically grouped by specific rule which we created. It same goes for the uniformat. So all these are automatically updated. So we got to the end. Now I'm gonna try to respond to your questions. I think it was clear for today. I'm not sure. Hopefully, every one of you could follow this presentation without any issues. Can you create pauses in animation? Also for the schedule animation, is it possible to pause the execution without affecting dates? In this simple animations, yes, you can create the pauses. So I'm gonna go to my schedule animation, to my animation. And this is the one, the simple one that we created. So this is the animation, but if you want to create, let's say, a pause right here, for example. So I'm gonna play it. So if this is the place where we want to create a pause, I'm gonna create a new frame, keyframe, right here, new keyframe. Let's call it 1A. This is the one, and then we can duplicate the same keyframe, but somewhere else. For example, we're gonna create a pause in duration of 1 second. It means that we want to create new frame 30 seconds after this one. It's around 204 frame. So if I hit OK, we created new keyframe with the same camera position. And now when we play the animation, it's gonna look like this. So this is a pause, and then it continues. For the schedule animation, there is no way to create in the BEXEL Manager the pause because the dates are actually keyframes. But when you export your schedule animation as a video or as a set of images, then in a post-production, in any software for a post-production, you can create the pause in any specific time of your animation. Can the project files like Revit be accessed from Google Drive or BIM 360, or do they have to be manually updated via Revit? Currently, you have to download these projects from the BIM 360 and then export them as an IFC files or BX3 files, and then you can use it in the BEXEL manager. We currently do not have the real time or any other link with a BIM 360. How can we load the add-ins such as IFC model checker and NetSpec BIM checker? If you go to this part of the BEXEL manager site, if you log in, then when you download any of these checkers or the add-ins, there's a brief manual how you can install them. And it's really, really simple. Let me just check some more questions in the chat screen. I can create import selection. I can't see import selection set. Yes, because this selection set add-in is actually created add-in using our own API. And this is something that I think we're gonna share with you as well in this shared user area in the future. So this is something that I'm currently have, but this is something that I think we're gonna share with you so you all be able to load your selection sets. And also, this is something that I'm gonna cover in the next session tomorrow, but all these selection set in the same way as the clash detection issues can be easily transferred and created as an issues using the BCF manager, but more about that tomorrow. I think we answered most of your questions. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attendance, for your patience, and see you tomorrow on the same time. Bye bye.